The Project Nature collection is now permanently free on the Unreal Engine marketplace. Crossing grasslands and forests, Project Nature scanned interesting plants across the globe to assemble this collection. Get unlimited access to over 20 environment and vegetation projects with hundreds of optimized plant models and materials. Head over to the marketplace and download them all today. Some of the greatest scenes from the TV series Game of Thrones were created by the Third Floor, one of the entertainment industry's most remarkable and award-winning visualization companies. Venture behind the scenes of Westeros in our spotlight and learn how real-time technology powered virtual sets, virtual scouting, and shot exploration as the showmakers innovated on the increasingly complex scenes of Game of Thrones. Unreal Engine 425 Preview 4 has arrived. If you're interested in taking new features for a test run, head to the Epic Games Launcher or GitHub to download the preview. Please share your feedback on the Unreal Engine 425 preview thread in the forums. The founders of new Spanish studio Piccolo risked it all when they left their well-recognized roles in digital advertising to pursue their dreams in game development. Despite stepping into unfamiliar territory, Piccolo's first title, Arise, A Simple Story, has garnered great reviews, a rarity for a brand new studio. To see how the fledgling developer was able to create a charming, minimalistic look inspired by classic animated films, read our interview with Piccolo, where you'll also get a peek into their workflow. Say you could replicate an entire city in 3D. The possibilities would be limitless. Real estate could be bought and sold with prospective clients touring houses and neighborhoods in VR. Virtual tours of key attractions could boost tourism. You could even host VR concerts, connecting music fans from around the world. One visualization studio has achieved just this. Learn more about how Zoen leverages real-time tools to create everything from a digital 3D replica of Helsinki to digital twins of buildings that can interact with third-party data from Internet of Things sensors, all on the Unreal Engine blog. To work towards a future in the automotive industry, students from ISD Rubica recreated the Genesis Essentia in an experimental real-time scene while exploring ray tracing and familiarizing themselves with Unreal Engine. Read their write-up on how the two-person team created the impressive project showcasing Hyundai's concept car. And over to our top Karma earners, Clockwork Ocean, Zadkiel, Menschlich TV, Groat 13, Black Forest Dragon, Falling Brickwork, Captain Cake, GeoDVS, A Very Cute Frog, and Redrain Kuka. Thank you all so much for your help on Answer Hub. For our spotlights, first up is a gorgeous character named Sera, adorned in her parade armor. The concepts and character were created by Craig Matchett, and you can see more of their character creations on ArtStation. Unreal Engine support has been added to Kondo, a tool to help you clean up the build artifacts and cache files from your projects, potentially saving you gigabytes of space on your drives. Head over to GitHub and try it out for yourself. Lastly, for this week, explore unknown lands and fight mythical beasts as Lucen. On your quest to ask the old gods to restore light to your village, harness light with your sword and bow to cut down your foes, and discover ancient secrets. Find Lucen on Steam or follow their progress via devlogs on YouTube. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching our news and community spotlight.
Hi everyone and welcome to Inside Unreal, your weekly show where we learn, explore and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host Victor Broden, and with me today I have pipeline developer James Baber as well as senior technical animator Kay Vazzi. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, well, it's glad to be back.
For sure. And
Thanks.
go ahead, James.
Oh, thanks for having us.
For sure. As you all can tell, things are a little bit different this time around, but we are happy that we're able to bring you Inside Unreal back on a weekly cadence, and we hope that you understand all of the differences that is happening here. Without further ado, today we are going to be talking a little bit about our Blender to Unreal tools that both of you, as well as a couple other folks over at Epic, have been working on for the past couple of weeks. Would you mind giving us an introduction to what we'll be covering today?
Yeah, absolutely. So previously, we've talked about the two different add-ons, Send to Unreal, as well as UE to Rigify, or what we're calling UE to Rigify. And so the last time we went over more of the in-depth into UE to Rigify as far as the mannequin goes and how the node mapping works and how templates work and things like that. So as promised, this time, what we want to do is show you something a little bit less standard than the mannequin and show you how easy it is to get it working in our system. So James, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, just basically to reiterate on that, this is just another use case for the tool. We worked with the mannequin, which everyone's familiar with, and now we're kind of branching out into more custom rigs and things like that. So
Yeah, so hopefully we can show you a good example today of how that's going to work. Hopefully this will just be another iteration of sort of where to click and what to type and how to do. And you know, the more that we can show you guys that, the better it's going to be when you get to play with the tool. So I guess we can jump right in, Victor, unless there's anything else.
No, but I do realize that I have to make a co-host so that you can share your screen, which has been
Oh,
done.
okay.
So go ahead, the floor is yours.
So I have the power. Okay, yeah, we're all getting used to Zoom here. So let's share screen. All right, so I'm going to rely on Victor to give me the all clear that everything looks good.
It's looking good, and I'm out of the picture, so you're good to go.
All right, everyone. So what we're looking at here is Blender on one side, UE4 on the other. What I'm going to do, and I imagine though the format is a little bit different, we are still going to sort of run through the demo and then take any questions or anything like that at the end. If there's something really urgent and pressing, I assume you can let Victor know, and then we'll get it handled for you. So the one thing that we wanted to show today that's different than the mannequin is something completely sort of opposite of what we've shown. What you're looking at is the doe character from the animal variety pack in the marketplace. So I'm not going to go into how to access the marketplace and how to get assets into your projects and things like that from the marketplace. We do have information on that, and I'm sure we can get that to you if needed. This is the third person template from the launcher, and you can see that I've added the animal variety pack. So the process for this was to go to the deer, stag, and doe folder and go to meshes, and literally just exported the FBX right out of Engine. I've done all of that just so that we can get into sort of the real meat and potatoes, if you will, of the tool. But that's really all that needs to happen. Um, Once you get that FBX and you just do an absolute standard import of the FBX into Blender, this is what your result should be. So if you look, you're going to have the character with all of the crazy bones that we've been addressing in past streams, along with your mesh. I will caution you with the animal variety pack. You will see some odd geometry, and that's for all the fur. So again, you know what we're trying to do with this tool is remove you from really having to worry about the structure of the geometry in this case. You know that if you have this asset in Engine, then you should be able to work with it in our tool, no matter if the modeling is done to a degree that you would do in your studio or home or team. You can still work with it. So making sure that the add-ons are loaded, and we'll be back to our preferences here in a second. But remember, you should have two. You should have Send to Unreal, and you should have UE to Rigify. I'm going to close that down. So I'm going to be honest with you, we are going to cheat just a little bit, okay? So I do already have the deer templatized, And that's just to save time because it does take a little bit of time to do all the connections. And so we don't want to necessarily do that for this type of character. We did it last stream on the mannequin, so the process is still the same. So first of all, I'm going to grab my root armature that came in. And you see we have the deer template already. And so I'm just going to go ahead and run through the modes just again to refresh everybody who, or anybody who's new to the stream and hasn't seen the other two. The first mode is edit meta rig. So if you need to delete joints from the Rigify meta rig, add joints, make decisions based on any of that, this is where you do that. You can snap up to the existing skeleton. You can see that all of these bones were hand snapped. This is also a good time to mention that what I'm using here is the quadruped from Rigify. So it is just Rigify's standard quadruped. So assuming that you have gotten your meta rig to the state in which you want it, we can go FK to source. Remember, your FK to source is going to be where you set up the mapping for having animation come in on the character. And also remember that you're going to have your bone remapping nodes view here. And while that mode is active, you can actually see. Now, I have been really slack, and James is probably rubbing his head because I have not gone and made groups and added them and combined them all together. But just as a little refresher, remember you can come and combine selected nodes like I've done here, and then you'll see the connections are all, you can align them as well in case you get cross connections. Let's flip back over to the 3D viewport. So the next mode that you have is source to deform. This is where you actually map all of your character's bones to the deform bones in Rigify. So if you're going to do custom animation on a mesh that's just bones and weights that you've imported, this is where that's going to happen. We'll take one more look at the bone remapping nodes view while we're in this mode. You can see that this is much more organized, and everything is grouped and hooked up properly. You'll notice that we have a disconnection here. That's because I actually added it to a different group. So it's going to only connect once. Let's flip back to our 3D viewport. And let's get to the control. So this is where everybody wants to be. One thing to note, I believe that we've talked about this before, but I'm not sure. One thing to note is that by default, when you go to control, you're creating a new Rigify control rig based on the metadata or the meta rig that you have. If you look, you're going to be in FK mode right off the bat, and that's just going to happen that way. You can reset this. We are doing this on purpose to make it just a little bit easier, but to get started with animating and hooking up everything, but you can also change that to IK just as soon as you start. Now, I'm going to cheat just a little bit again because I'm going to flip over and there's already animation on this guy. So I'm going to apologize. I haven't animated a quadruped walk cycle in probably 10 plus years. This is my custom animation on this deer, just using the Rigify rig. And there is no, I did a talk this weekend where this came up as well. I just want to be clear for you guys. There was no weight painting on this. I did zero weight painting whatsoever. This was all the weights that come in from engine. Now, whether that's good or bad or otherwise, we'll see. But there was definitely no weights painted by me on this. So we can go to our action editor, and we're going to talk about preferences next, but remember that you want to give your action a name that makes sense for you. Or if you're going to overwrite, let's flip back over to UE4. In the animations folder for the deer, stag, and doe, you'll see that there's a naming convention. Now, I'm not going to overwrite the walk for the deer doe, but if I did, I would want to make sure that my name is the same. But I'm not doing that in this case. I'm going to bring in a fresh animation. And you'll see if we come back to Blender and select all the controls that you can see all the animation in the action editor for this. All right, let's talk about preferences. Okay, so we're going to be using two add-ons, like I mentioned before. Send to Unreal is what's going to send the asset to UE4, and UE to Rigify is what's going to interface with to allow us just to update animation and things like that. Also remember that in UE to Rigify, just as a review, this is where you import and export your template. Once you do all those mappings, this is where you can save that to disk to pass off to an outsourcer or anything like that. Send to Unreal, there's two modes, basic, advanced. We want to go in here and we want to hit advanced, and in the export settings, we want to integrate with the UE to Rigify add-on. And the advanced mode gives us these options down here. Well, a few more options. What I'm going to do is hop back over to UE4 and go to my meshes directory. And if you've worked with UE4, you know that when you bring in a scale mesh, you're going to typically have a mesh representation and a skeleton asset for any character or any scale mesh you bring in. It doesn't have to necessarily be a character. So what I want to do is I want to import this animation into UE4 on the deer doe skeleton. So I'm going to grab it and right click on it and copy the reference. And I'm going to bring it over to Blender and just paste it in. Now, one thing I like to do is I will go ahead while this is live, and hopefully you guys can see my cursor, and I grabbed a little too much, but I'm going to go ahead and grab the path that I want to drop the other assets in and just paste it while I'm here. What this is going to do is this is going to update the scale mesh for the SK deer doe if needed, and it's going to drop the animation into UE4. Now, obviously, I was testing beforehand. So what we're going to do is delete this asset and kill it. And we're going to send this over. So we did that. We're integrated. Let's close our preferences. And we should be able to send to Unreal. Moment of truth, everyone. Okay, so in UE4, you can see that we dirtied the scale mesh, which is fine. It just means that another animation was brought in. And there's our actual animation. Let's check it out. There we go.
Nice.
It is walking. Now, one thing I'm going to do, there's a little bit of a hitch there, and that is something that we are working on. If you'll notice over here in Blender, for all of my animators who are watching, I have keys outside of what my start and end is for this loopable action, because I want to set the tangents on the curves so that they loop smoothly. So I don't need to have my end go all the way out. And we're working on Blender respecting that. If you'll look at the action that actually got sent over, you'll see the overhang. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to come to frame 31 and some change, right click, and I'm going to remove those two. And we lost a lot of our hitches, which is what we wanted. And I'm going to save that animation asset. So let's take this one step further just to, to see how easy this really is. And I'm just going to highlight the scale mesh and hit save just to get rid of that asterisk. So, and I'm going to say this, sort of flippantly, but it was just that easy. You literally could just export the FBX, import it. Once you do that setup once, now I can send the deer template to any outsourcer who has these add-ons, and they can bring in and begin to animate on this. and then drop an animation asset into the shared revision control system for your game. And so now we have this animation asset. So let's play a little bit. So hopefully this will come through for you guys in my viewport. So this is the walk that we started with when we got the pack. And it's fine for prototyping, but it's a little odd. So let's replace it just really quickly. And I'm sure this is probably a review for most of you, but now that we have that animation asset, let's see how it works with everything else that was brought in from the project. So let's look at our blend space. This is a 1D blend space, and we just have an idle breathing, and then here is where our walk animation is. So I'm going to look in my animations list and find what we imported. Oh, come now. We'll just do it the hard way then. And save. Let's see how this works. Cool. Let's play. Awesome. I think that's going to work. So I'm going to save the blend space after having replaced the animation that we just brought in from Blender. And we should, let's double check our ANMBP. And let's check our idle state in the state machine. We'll go in the state machine. Let's go in our idle walk. And we're just referencing the 1D blend space, which was updated. So that should be good to go. Let's double check our blueprints for our third person. And you guys who are familiar can already see I've swapped out the deer for the mannequin. And any of the event graph nodes should still work perfectly fine as long as we have that speed variable, which was created in our ANMBP. And let's play. And there's our new walk. So as quickly as you can build up those mappings and animate a walk, you can prototype a character from the marketplace and get it into a game directly from Blender. And that has been the whole goal of these two add-ons and these tools. And there we go. So not a crazy long demo, but that's really sort of the culmination of everything that we have been working on. So I would love to get some questions and we can discuss kind of where we are with development and some of the things that we're working on. James, did you have anything you wanted to throw in?
No, well, yeah, one thing you mentioned about the frame range, like there's a couple other options and things like that that we're putting into it. But yeah, there's small little features and things that we're putting in to make it a little more flexible. But yep. So
Yeah.
that's that good questions, I think.
Yeah, well, and we just wanted to show that this templating will work with whatever you've got, even if you have a custom rig that you've got rigged in Blender and you want to map it to something else. It's really sort of built for exactly that. I'm going to flip back over to layout. One thing I wanted to mention as well, and it's something that we mentioned before that I know a lot of people have sort of been I know this information is coming at you really quick, but with the add-on 2, the process for this for mapping is using Alt-1, and you can link selected, or you can just create the nodes without having them hooked up for your node-based mapping. I'm going to flip back over to that screen and show sort of the extent of of being able to put animation onto something from the marketplace. It's really not that much. Like it should be fairly simple to do. So, Victor, are we getting any questions or anything?
A couple, yes. Let's see. I believe we have some new folks in chat watching the video today, and they're asking when we're planning on releasing the tool. And I guess it's good to just make that statement clear to everyone as well, that it will be sometime this year. We are still iterating on the tool, making sure that it's as good as it can be before we release it. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, that sounds pretty accurate to me. We are still in development on some things and working to true up others. As we test it internally, we do have artists using it, and so it seems to be going well. And we are sort of just getting as much time as we can to develop and make sure that everything is buttoned up and works really well.
All right, and then had a user who was wondering if the add-on will support shape keys.
Absolutely, it absolutely will. In fact, we should play with that. I mean, while we're here, we may as well try and break something, right?
Sure, we definitely got time. So
Yeah, we definitely do.
oh, and go ahead, Kay.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we really appreciate all the feedback everyone's been giving us on the forum announcement post for the add-on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and just to be clear with as far as the shape keys question, the UE to Rigify isn't going to be doing anything with shape keys. That's just going to be whatever you set up in Blender in the same way you would do that for an FBX export import. But it'll work fine with shape keys if you put the morph targets on when you import.
Yeah, I think we walked through that in the first one we did as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, at the end, if you look at the end of the first stream, we did an example with shape keys.
And I think Kay's going through it here as well.
We will see what we can do.
While Kay is iterating on that, there's another question around if these tools do anything special with asset prefixes like SM, SK, and M. And then there's a follow-up question, which is how important is it to follow these guidelines and sort of naming conventions?
There, as far as the tool looking for naming conventions, there's really only two that you need to follow, and that's pretty much will be automatically handled by Unreal. But when you have a skeleton, it's just underscore skeleton of the object, or that's what will be created by the tool. So you could change the referencing of that even within Unreal to whatever name you want, but that's the only standardized name that it will create. As far as any other names that it looks for, only when you're importing LODs do you need to follow the LOD prefix postfix on your names. It's just that underscore LOD and then the number. But besides that, there's no naming conventions other than you have those collections that you're putting your objects in. So, meshes go in the mesh collection, rigs go in the rig collection, and then besides that, there's no other conventions.
And that's what James is talking about here. When you do a fresh import, we'll actually talk about that too. We'll do a fresh import after I break this thing horribly.
Making some Bambi ears.
Well, you get stung by bees occasionally when you're a deer in the forest, and this doe happens to be allergic, and so that's what we're doing here.
Let's see. Someone else is wondering how easy it is to add sockets and export them with the object.
Yeah, so that was one of the requests that we had seen people put out, and that's something that we're thinking about adding. But yeah, a lot of people ask for, being able to add an empty and then it creates sockets in engine. So there's a few things that we're fixing some bugs, and then also there's some few smaller features like that we'd like to put in.
There was another question around tell us about the improvement on textures from Blender. The last time the UV was flipped.
I don't know about the UV being flipped. It's going to be the same as your FBX export. So we're not changing the UV mappings or anything like that. It's just, you export your model and you're going to get whatever you got from an FBX export.
Moment of truth now.
Well, what we need to do is let's go back into the blend space.
I think if you did a fresh import,
Yep.
just in another location and select more
So
targets.
what we'll do is in the preferences, so launch FBX Import UI. For those of you that don't know, UE4 has a preference that you can tick. Recently let me back up. Recently, the scale mesh import options have changed so that you can edit them inside of the asset in UE4 and then do a re-import. And that allows you to break up things like I only want to import my weights versus my skeleton versus my bone positions and things like that. And so what we're doing is we're sending a launch FBX import UI. So I have that ticked. And what I'm going to do is get this sent over, but I'm expecting it to not send up the window because the scale mesh already exists, which is something that we're working on. So the reason I'm moving this is because I can't see the morph curves. So what I want to do is for this example, I'm going to come into the preferences and clear out the update. And we will create a new folder in here.
Okay, it's making a new folder. James, could you answer the question if sent to Unreal exports objects using their object origin as the FBX origin?
Yeah, so it's going to use the scene origin in Blender. And that was another thing that someone had mentioned in the previous stream, is just adding in maybe an option to where you can say export object origin instead of world origin. But currently right now it's just, it's exporting at world origin. But that would be something that would be fairly easy to implement.
And then someone was asking us, just to clarify, the send to Unreal button is a separate add-on to the whole Rigify thing.
Yes. Yeah, so the send to Unreal was stream 1. Stream 2 is UE to Rigify, and then this stream is the second part to the UE to Rigify.
And you can go ahead and find those links to those streams in the announcement forum post.
So while you guys were answering those questions, this is now pulled up based on ticking on the import with FBX options. This opens up Unreal's options and allows you to tick the morph targets. I also went ahead and chose the skeleton. Oh, you know what? I bet it's because I chose the skeleton.
I might be wrong, but is it also possible to change the import settings in the skeletal mesh and then do a re-import with the morph target checked, or is that not an option that you get in the import settings?
I'm not sure if the morph target import settings are on the skeletal mesh, but I might be wrong about that.
They are. I believe they are. Let's look right now. Asset details. Yeah, so where we're talking about down here is the import settings that are now a part of every scale mesh. This allows you to come in and select morph targets and basically anything that you can choose when that window opens for you um, initially, as well as being able to just bring in geometry only or skin weights only, things like that. If I didn't just close the dialog. But as you can see, well, actually, I was going to put that there, but I'm going to lose my curves again. As you can see, our curve is there and working. So yeah, it will support shape keys. And then we will make sure that it, you know, will work with animations and things like that. Because this was a change to the scale mesh, I really should not have tried to bring in animation because morph targets live on the scale mesh. And so, oh, why did I do that again? Here we go. Save. Now I'm going to dock it there. We do have a different scale mesh now. It is attached to the same skeleton. Wow, that guy. So what we can do is go back to our third-person blueprints and our viewport, and I'm just going to undock this and move it over a little bit so that I can see what's going on. Go to our mesh component. And let's see, that one is the one that's in Blender. Compile, save. Let's go here and let's just set this and save it. And if we wanted to turn that on, we could add a curve and actually have it.
Someone mentioned that. Did you know that if you open Graph Editor and press the T key and select line, that will make the animation loop?
Yes. Hold on one second. Yep, we're back to the old walk. But as you can see, we are supporting shape keys.
Ta-da! Was another question that came in. Will it, and I believe they are referencing the add-on, will the add-on help automate object names for custom collision so that we can easily create UCX_collisions?
That's a good note. We should definitely make sure that that's the case.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I believe that was mentioned in one of the first streams, and I think that was one of the another one of our things that we were looking to implement. Either have objects in a collision collection, or just use Blender's collisions, and it would just pull from Blender's internal collisions if you set up collisions in Blender.
Right. We had that. I think we had that question with static meshes. We also were supporting LODs, by the way. But I have to say, having used UE4's automatic LODing, it is pretty good. It is strong. So you may want to try that first before modeling all your LODs. But again, if you're going to do LODs, one of the things that I've done in the past on special projects is use the decimate modifier inside of Blender, which works wonderfully. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, we do support both skeletal and static mesh LOD generation inside Unreal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So shape keys, there was another question. What was it that we were going to talk about while I was doing the bee sting ear, as it were?
See, I think James already answered that one, but I have a few more.
Sure.
This user in chat was wondering, I know it's a bit of an advanced thing, but exporting a bone chain that has scaling in it fails with FBX Export. Any plans trying to work on that?
So that's a good question. Yes. We are actually, in fact, James and I just talked about that the other day. Yeah, having bone chains work with scale is something that is difficult no matter what app you're coming out of going into UE4, and it is something that we definitely want to try and support. And so it is on our list. Yeah, absolutely. There's always the effect of like you want a vine to grow, out of nowhere or something like that. And so it's always easy to have your like tube of geo skin to a chain of bones, and then just scale your bones to have it sort of elongate. And not only that, but if you the other case for that is, when you have some large like a snake eating a beach ball, right? And you want to actually have it move through the geo and deform it. That's the other sort of case for that. But yes, we are looking into all of those things. But again, the thing that we really wanted to sort of get the community especially was the ability to just sort of bring something in, map it, and get it back out, just so that you can create anim sets for any of these like animals or characters, anything like that, and actually be able to move forward with your game development. Let me flip over. And what I want to do is I'm going to bring these down, and I'm going to swap to this Blender folder. And I'm going to swap out that should be our old one. I'm going to delete this folder. Okay, so we already have our walk in here, working with this scale mesh and skeleton. We just need to update it to bring it in. And so what I want to do is take the rig out of here and just use send to Unreal. There we go. So what I'm going to do is grab my root, and I'm just going to move it back to the collection. So we're just dealing with this mesh. And I'm going to make Blender full screen again. And I'm going to come over here, and we're going to redo the shape key and then just update the scale mesh, because that's really where it lives.
Yeah, and just when your update scale masters, you also just have your skeleton inside your rig collection, just so that Send to Unreal knows you're trying to do a skeleton mesh import
Yeah.
versus static. So
I was going to actually try and break it first, but he just saved you guys the trouble.
There were another question, or a few of them actually, regarding support for other file formats such as USD, GLTF.
As far as so the send to Unreal works with FBX Import Export. And I think I don't know. I think I kind of want to clarify this is like what our team does is we work with existing technologies and their APIs and just interface them essentially. So we're not responsible for, at least my team is not responsible for adding engine features. So like like a GTLF 2.0 importer, things like that. So we're working with FBX because that's the best file format to import with currently. But if you have with UED Rigify, if you're bringing in, say, something that's GTLF 2.0, so Blender supports import from GTLF 2.0, you can use your template to convert, even though, say, your bones will be different sizes or different things like that. As long as you have bones and weights, then you can just convert over those to your Rigify controls. But send to Unreal is just FBX.
And I think, hey, you're trying to animate that morph target. Is that right?
Well, I'm going to bring it in on the scale mesh just so that we have the ability to animate it based on the animation that we brought in previously. So this is something that I spoke about last time too, which is sort of working in a modular way. And what I ended up having to do previously was a perfect example of why not to work in a non-modular way, which is updating your scale mesh while you have animation on it, or are animating, I should say. And so that's really not the ideal way to do it. So what I'm doing right now is I've cleared all the animation and I've set up this file just so that we can edit the scale mesh itself as if I was going to paint weights or add a shape key, for example. And that will let us update the scale mesh for which we already brought our animation in on. So what I'm doing is going back to my preferences. You'll notice that with now, because I'm not really using UE to Rigify necessarily, I'm just going to use Send to Unreal, which was sort of harkening back to our first stream. And the mesh import path, I can actually come and grab the scale mesh and copy the reference and paste it. But what I want to do is clean up the path just a little bit. So it's just meshes. And now we will send to Unreal. Boom, there's the tech demo we were talking about.
Yes, so on the import, I would just remove the action on your rig.
That guy right there.
Yeah, so we're not importing any animation, so just delete the action. And then we have both the mesh and the skeleton that are importing, correct?
Yes, and they are both in the collections, which is the real takeaway from that. And now you see that our scale mesh updated. And as we said, I'll probably have to delete the scale mesh to bring up the window.
Yeah, so right now the tool defaults to a re-import. So Unreal is only going to let you re-import on certain information. So some of that information won't change unless it's like a unique import. So if we created, say, a new skeletal mesh and a new skeleton, then we would have all those import options on import.
Right. So what we can do is we can we can go to advanced mode and we can set the skeleton in this case. And just to update,
And this is just so that we're not importing on top of the existing asset. We're making a unique import. And so we'll be able to set those morph target settings in the advanced UI.
which is already on. And I can, again, I can bring it in on the skeleton that exists. That way the animations won't have to be retargeted. There we go. So now I'm going to make UE4 full screen. And shaders are compiling, so you'll have to forgive me.
Yeah, no Incredible at home.
I know, but it's okay. Our ear's back. But because I brought that in on the skeleton, we can now bring that scale mesh in here and then apply a curve to it. Oh my goodness, so difficult to work small like that. There we go. I'm going to swap back to the materials. The material should hook right up because it is literally the same mesh.
If you leave that one on there, it looks like a sheep.
Right? Didn't you think it was a sheep to begin with? Weren't you like, oh, you sent a sheep?
Pretty sure I thought it was a deer, but perhaps someone mentioned that before and I was already biased.
Oh, it could have been the last stream as well. All right, so, and just like that, you can bring in, just like that, you can bring in your scale mesh and actually update. Let's make sure we do this again. Now that things are a little cleaner than previously. That's that one, compile, save. Oh, how many walks do you need for a game? And so what I would want to do is if I wanted to animate that, I would probably have the morph target come in and then either do it in sequencer or set up a curve so that in the animation, that curve is referencing that at all times and turning it on. Like this. And then I would just come here and add a key and set the time to 0 and the value to 1. And then save this animation. And then as time plays, let's go to about halfway. And we will set another key to 0.5, 0. Then come to the end. Time 1, value 1. Save it, example map, play. There we go.
Throbbing.
Poor guy. Now we don't have that curve in our idle, so obviously it's going to snap back to not throbbing. But there we are. Little bit of guerrilla dev on the stream for you guys.
That's good. And it made me think that using morph targets like that could be an interesting way to add sort of diegetic information to the user that doesn't require any form of user interface and screen space.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we you can add all kinds of curves in here for metadata and then reference them in blueprints, and that's a UE4 stream. But you can see that the assets that we're sending back and forth, I mean, they are immediately usable and they're immediately immediately functional. And so I do think we definitely make a note on being able to animate your blend shapes inside of Blender, and then getting those curves over, which is something that's totally possible, as well as bringing up the import options UI on a whim.
Yeah, that bringing in right now it's set to re-import by default, but we could trigger unique imports, which just means even if you bring something in with the same name, it won't override it. It
Yep.
will create something that's like copy to or something of the asset.
Absolutely.
Or you can delete your current asset and import it that way too.
Yeah. Also, guys, documentation will be on the way. We are going to get that together in the very near future, and probably I would like to go ahead and get that out. And so that will be coming as well, along with dev, the continued development of the tool set. I feel so weird not being able to see the chat. So Victor, anything else from chat?
No new questions that popped up. I think we can go ahead and shut down the screen share, and we'll try to wrap up the stream.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get the camera back on there as well, and the lovely thirds, so that everyone knows who we are. Is there anything else that you folks wanted to add before we?
I mean, I just would love to say thank you to the community and the response, and thank you to Epic for letting us sort of go down this road and work with Blender in a more professional capacity, because I think the world uses it, and I absolutely love being able to do this stuff for you guys.
Yeah, I just reiterate on that. It's just it's been really great to see the response from the community and having us on the show. Thanks for having us on the show, Victor, and Epic giving us this opportunity. And we look forward to what we can do in the future.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I believe we will definitely try. Once it's ready for release, I think I'll have you guys come back and do a little bit of a sort of release stream, and perhaps if things have changed, we can go over those and make sure that we send all the links to the documentation, where the tool will be available. There are still some things that we're figuring out in terms of release, but I'm sure we'll make it there, and then we're going to be very excited to release it all for everyone. Just as a little bit of an end here, we do have a communities page. I know that the world isn't really in a state to do a lot of meetups right now, but you can still go ahead and try to connect with people. A lot of our meetup leads are actually planning on trying to host virtual events as well. And so if you go ahead and go to communities.unrealengine.com, you can find if there are any local meetup groups in your area, and then go ahead and connect with them and see what kind of virtual events they're planning. We will try to do our best to promote them as well, since we know that they're not actually going to occur at a physical space at this time. And we definitely hope that all of you are doing just fine out there. Other means, of course, thanks to Kay and James for coming on here, but also special thanks to Mercury Games, who provided us our new countdown that we had in the at the beginning of the stream. I know that James and Kay weren't able to see that. It's a little bit different now that we're doing this from home. We don't have the same systems anymore.
I'm super bummed that I didn't get to see it.
Well, thankfully, the VOD is going to go up on YouTube as soon as we're done with the stream as well. I should mention that we are not able at the moment to stream to both Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but we're working on that, and we're hoping that within the next couple of weeks we'll be back on both platforms as well. However, the VOD will exist up on YouTube within the next couple of hours. It's a pretty hefty file when you're streaming at 60 FPS at 1080p, but I'll need to download that and upload it, and then we'll all be able to watch it on YouTube as well if there was something specific that you wanted to go through. With that said, make sure you let us know about all your projects that you're working on. The release thread as well as work in progress on the forums are great. We also have the unofficial community Discord channel, Unreal Slackers, unrealslackers.org, that you can go ahead and tune into if you're interested in a big community. It's over. It's difficult for me to keep tabs now how many members we got, but it is constantly increasing, which is very exciting. That said, we are still looking for more countdown videos, so we did receive a new one from Mercury Games, but if you would like to take 30 minutes of development and speed it up to 5 minutes, send that to us together with a separate logo, not composited immediately, then we will go ahead and add a little countdown, and we'll put you on in the role that we have of the different countdowns. With that, make sure you follow us on social media for all news related to Unreal and Epic. And make sure you fill out the survey. I think Amanda will go ahead and paste it in chat if she hasn't already done that. If you do, go ahead and fill out your email address there. We know that we're not able to ship any t-shirts in the next couple of weeks until we're back at the office. However, we will take all of the surveys and we will still pick a random sweepstake winner, and we will go ahead and ship that out as soon as we're back in the office. And I think with that said, thanks again, James and Kay, for coming on the stream. It's been good, and I think I'll make sure that y'all are aware of what's happening on the forums, and we'll make sure to update the community as well on the progress of the add-on as it unfolds. With that said, I think y'all had a good time with us here today. Clearly, we are all at home, but there's no fancy studio going on. But we hope the quality and audio and everything came through as well as it could. And with that said, I think it's time to say goodbye. We hope you're all staying safe out there, and let us know everything you're working on. It's always exciting, especially around this time, to see what you're working on. Let us know about your streams if you happen to be streaming, and we'll try to tune in as much as possible. All right, time to say goodbye. I'm going to go ahead and play the little outro here, and we'll do a nice little wave. Bye, everyone.